Polls are closing in Colorado, Minnesota, and Texas at this very moment. So far tonight, CBS News has projected former President Trump will win the North Carolina, Virginia, Oklahoma, Tennessee, and Maine primaries. Former President Trump is also projected to win in Maine. If we didn't already mention that, CBS News projects President Biden will also win the state of Maine. And new this hour, CBS News can project Donald Trump and President Biden will both win their respective primaries in the state of Texas. A reminder, voters in 16 states, and don't forget, American Samoa, will have their voices heard tonight. 15 of those states, Republican primaries are in a race that's down to the former President Donald Trump, the frontrunner, and his challenger, Nikki Haley. They are battling for 865 delegates tonight. All those are up for grabs. The total delegates, it's worth reminding you, that a Republican candidate needs to clinch the nomination, well, that number is 1,215. I want to begin this hour with CBS News Executive Director of Elections and Surveys, your friend and mine, Anthony Salvanto, who is following all of this at the data desk. Anthony, to the degree there is one so far, what is the narrative of Super Tuesday?
In 2 words, Donald Trump. In 3 words, Donald Trump winning. He's lighting up this map in red, adding to his delegate haul. He's at 473 to 46 in overall delegates. And let me zoom in on Texas here just to give you a sampling of what is going on here. All these counties lighting up in red are ones that Trump is winning. I've mentioned before that there's been in some of the states where Nikki Haley has performed relatively well. She's gotten a third, sometimes a quarter of the vote. But here in Texas, she's tracking at just 20%. Now, this is a state, a very conservative state, maybe not a surprise there. The only places where you look, and you look a little bit closer for Nikki Haley, is in and around, should she do better in and around cities, in Austin, in Houston, in San Antonio? Not so much, at least not yet, right? And the reason I point to those places is that throughout the night, Nikki Haley might make the argument that, well, she's winning a more college degree holding voter set. She's winning more independents in states where they can participate in these primaries. She'll make those arguments and say, well, she might be a better general election candidate. But so far, Republican primary voters not buying it, Major.
Salvanto, thank you very much. We'll be checking back with you throughout the night. Donald Trump and Nikki Haley are battling it out, although, as Anthony just pointed out, it's not much of a battle tonight, but they're battling for delegates. And more than a third of them are up for grabs on this Super Tuesday in the GOP nominating contest. CBS News campaign reporters Olivia Rinaldi and Nidia Cavazos join me now. Olivia is at Mar-a-Lago in Palm Beach, Florida. That's the head of the Trump campaign watch party, if you will. Nidia is with the Haley campaign in Charleston, South Carolina. Olivia, let's start with you. Festive atmosphere, I'm guessing, there in Mar-a-Lago.
Yeah, Major, perfect timing. Behind me, you can hear people celebrating in this ballroom all night as they have called state after state after state for Donald Trump. And chants of USA happening behind me now. It's been a very festive atmosphere. People, congressmen from all over the country, Congressman Byron Donalds, Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene, all sorts of people coming through this ballroom tonight to celebrate with Donald Trump as he's getting closer to clinching that nomination. As you mentioned, it's about 1,215 delegates that he's going to need. It looks like he is well on his way there. I just spoke with a campaign official earlier tonight who told me they're feeling quite good. There's no reason for them not to feel great, though, tonight. It seems that all their expectations have been met, perhaps exceeded, and Donald Trump seems like he's going to have a good night. We're expecting him to speak soon, shortly, where he's going to address his big win tonight, and it'll be something we're watching for, Major.
Nidia Cavazos, I want to go with you, and the contrast could not be more stark. Mar-a-Lago, boisterous, lighted, loud, enthusiastic. You're there. There's no watch party. It's not your fault that it's dark around you. It's nighttime after all. But, I mean, there's just nothing happening around the Haley campaign. Describe this evening for the Haley campaign and what path there might be forward.
That's exactly right, Major. There is no watch party, and it is a complete opposite picture of what we have at Mar-a-Lago. Now, we're talking about Charleston, South Carolina. It is pretty quiet here, and it's odd to be able to say that the day has been pretty calm and quiet on the Haley campaign side, and we never really got to say this on the campaign trail, but that's what it's been like today. And now we're talking about a presidential candidate, a hopeful presidential candidate who is completely out of the picture here today. You know, as far as her team, the official reason as to why there was no watch watch party is because this was supposed to be considered the travel day for her. She has been on a 10-day campaign swing all across the country, but so have us reporters who have been following her. And, you know, this was their official explanation. There is complete silence from her campaign tonight, aside from the previous campaign statement that we had received a couple of hours ago saying that there was a very festive mood at the Haley campaign, that there was a lot of food, there was also music, they were listening to some tunes, and we know that Haley is also really big on music. So this is sort of the environment that they were describing, but this is what we have here. It is nighttime, it is dark, and there's just silence from the campaign team. And we were to talk about the goals for Haley and her team. They were trying to be competitive in this race, and yet they never quite mentioned any sort of metrics by which they would define a successful night here at Super Tuesday. We asked her over and over, and in so many different ways. Haley has been asked throughout the campaign trail, across media appearances, but Haley has refused to provide any sort of metrics, and you know, she didn't necessarily commit to staying in the race past Super Tuesday. She had all along said, my focus is Super Tuesday, and even when we would ask, you know, can you define what competitive means to you, throughout the past couple of days, what I was able to note from Haley is a bit more of a combative response. She would spin the question back to reporters and say, well, it seems that you guys have always been the ones to define who is competitive in this race. When the media said that she finished in third place, Haley was saying she was competitive and it was a win to her.
Metrics for competitiveness and a path forward. Elusive tonight from the Haley campaign. Olivia Rinaldi and Nidia Cavazos, thank you very much. We have another update. CBS News projects that former President Trump has won the Arkansas Republican primary. We can also project that President Biden has won Arkansas's Democratic primary. Catch a theme for the evening? Polls have just closed in Minnesota, and one of those states where some of the voters are staging a kind of protest vote, something akin to what happened a week ago in Michigan against President Biden in this Democratic primary. CBS News political reporter Aaron Navarro joins me now from Minneapolis. Aaron, you've been talking to those who are working on this uncommitted voting process in Minnesota and other states. What can you tell us?
That's right, Major. Good to be with you. Some states to watch, including Minnesota, where there has been that push, though a bit of a compressed timeline for people to cast that protest vote to President Biden's response to what's happening in Gaza. Minnesota, Massachusetts, North Carolina, and Colorado were some states I was told to look at. But just from being here on the ground in Minnesota, I'm in a pretty heavy Somali population here in Minneapolis, and turnout has still been a bit low. About 200 people came to this polling site that I'm at. I was on the University of Minnesota campus where I was told it's spring break, and it showed there weren't that many voters that ended up coming out. But the young voters I did talk to were adamant in voting uncommitted, and also, and this is the fear for the Biden campaign and other Democrats supporting him, they were adamant in that they would stay home or vote for the third party in November. That's going to be the thread to watch, regardless of how big the uncommitted vote ends up being in Minnesota or the other states.
And Aaron, I believe you have some sound from a voter or two that you met and talked to there.
That's right. In addition to the voters, I also chatted with the Democratic Party chair here in Minnesota, Ken Martin, to kind of get the perspective from the Democrat Biden world to the uncommitted vote and young voters saying they'll stay home. Take a listen to what he had to tell me.
I expect President Biden to, much like he has throughout the nation already in contest, to overwhelmingly win tonight, not only here in Minnesota, but throughout the nation. Look, he's received well over 86% on average of the vote in the states that he's already competed in. I think that will be true here in Minnesota. And again, don't want to minimize the message that people are trying to send on a really complicated and important issue. But the reality is that when this becomes an existential choice between President Biden and Donald Trump, I have no doubt that those voters will vote for President Biden.
And that was the answer that the chair, Ken Martin, had for me, in that he thinks that younger voters will still come out to vote in November, even if nothing changes on Gaza, because there's issues like abortion, the economy, student loans that will galvanize these younger voters, which Biden needs if he wants to match the coalition that he had in 2020.
Coming to us from Minneapolis, Aaron Navarro, thank you so very much. The nominees for both parties, well, they could be decided very soon, and they're certainly on their way this evening. CBS News Chief Election and Campaign Correspondent Robert Costa joins me now. Robert, your impressions of the evening so far?
Great to be with you, Major. So far, as expected, former President Donald Trump picking up delegates across the country. And this is a crossroads for the Trump campaign. But at the same time, so many clouds ahead for the former president. He's about to be sitting in a courtroom in Lower Manhattan starting on March 25th, likely 6 weeks in New York City, just at a time when usually campaigns in his position would want to pivot toward the general election. Instead, he will be dealing with his legal hurdles. And I am hearing from sources close to Trump that he is meeting with major donors, thinking through his financial future, both politically and legally, has met with Elon Musk, the billionaire, in recent days on Sunday. And so you see Trump trying to consolidate himself politically tonight across the map, but he still faces all of these different issues across the board at the same time.
And Robert, it's often tempting on a night like this to focus on the night, but I'd like to get your perspective on the last year and a half, because after the midterms, there was a sense that former President Trump wasn't necessarily going to be as well positioned as we see him tonight. There was the Ron DeSantis, and there were, for a time, the Florida governor was running ahead of the former president. Talk to me about how Trump has gotten from there to where he finds himself tonight.
As I look at these exit polls tonight and these early returns, it's evident to me, Major, that the suburban vote is going to be so crucial across the country in 2024. And that while Trump is winning big tonight, will he win big in the suburbs come November as the nominee, the likely nominee? Will those Haley voters stay home? Will they come over to Trump eventually and join his coalition? Will they perhaps vote for President Joe Biden? And how could they be courted? You think about not only the suburbs of Boston tonight or the suburbs in Northern Virginia, but I always think about my hometown in Bucks County, Pennsylvania, those collar counties around Philadelphia, such a swing area, Pennsylvania, along with Michigan, Wisconsin. Will those suburban voters listen to Biden's overtures on issues like January 6th and democracy and say, we just can't go with Trump again? Or will Trump be able to say, you might not like what I did on January 6th, but I'm offering you an alternative on the border, on the economy? That's the tension right now in this campaign.
Robert Costa, as always, thank you very much. Abortion rights ended up taking center stage in the 2022 midterms and in some of the races we saw play out in 2023 in the wake of the Roe versus Wade being overturned by the Supreme Court. Reproductive rights have been in the spotlight again with a controversial ruling about IVF access in Alabama. CBS News Chief White House correspondent Nancy Cordes joins me now here in Studio 57 in New York. Nancy, always great to see you. So this issue will be, and there is a telegraphing from the Biden campaign about this, we're even going to see it play out symbolically on Thursday night at the State of the Union.
We will. Not only the president and the first lady, but also congressional Democrats inviting fertility doctors, inviting IVF patients to the State of the Union to make the point that what we saw in Alabama is a natural consequence of reproductive rights being rolled back at the national level, that you can't predict what will happen when you peel back the federal right to an abortion, as we saw in the Dobbs decision. And so, we had a poll here at CBS News this weekend that showed that nearly 9 in 10 Americans believe that IVF should remain legal. There's almost no issue that gets 90%. And so this is a clear winner for them.
And
so they're going to go
trying to scramble back away from that and say, no, we didn't mean that. That's not where we are. But still, this resonates.
Right. And there's no imminent threat to IVF at the national level. And yet, the point that the president is going to make, and the point that these Democrats are making, is you just don't know what's going to happen state to state when it comes to contraception, when it comes to birth control of all forms, when it comes to abortion, when, each state is allowed to make these decisions.
And this will be the first presidential election since the Dobbs decision.
Yes.
And there is a turnout pattern, as we mentioned a moment ago. 2022, 2023, this is a mover of voters. And the Biden campaign is counting on that to happen once again.
And it's not just a mover of Democratic voters. Let me tell you about one interesting number in our exit polling tonight. Among Virginia Republicans, when it comes to a national abortion ban, 34% favor a national abortion ban, 57% do not. These are Republicans saying they do not favor an abortion ban. Former President Trump just last week said maybe he'd be for one.
16 weeks.
And that is a challenging position to take in a general election when you've got independent voters, some Republican voters, and certainly Democratic voters who say they don't want to go in that direction.
And after State of the Union, do you expect, based on your conversations with the Biden-Harris reelection campaign, for this to be a Rose Garden campaign for reelection or a national, I'm out there, I'm touching voters, I'm going here and there and everywhere for the president?
I think that they recognize that this president does best, comes off best when he's able to get out obviously in a controlled way. He is the president of the United States, but get out and actually be seen interacting with voters. They know that he needs to be seen interacting with voters because there are all kinds of questions about his vigor and his stamina and what kind of race he's going to run. So that needs to happen. Now, one of the nice things about being president of the United States is you can go get on your plane at Andrews Air Force Base in the morning. You can go hold a rally and you can get back that night and sleep in your own bed in the White House that night. So it's not as onerous as it might be for a challenger, but it'll be a mix. We'll see events at the White House and events out on the road as well.
Many advantages to being president, among them Air Force One. We have a projection. I told you they would be rolling throughout the evening. We have a projection now. Here's an update. CBS News, I'm waiting for the graphic. Bring it up, please. Projects that. Here we come. I'm promised it's on its way. There it is. President Donald Trump has won the Arkansas. Wait a minute. Arkansas. Didn't we do Arkansas? No, Alabama. Yes, it meant to say Alabama. It said Arkansas, so I read Arkansas. It's Alabama. We can also project that President Biden has won. I think we said this. I said this before. We'll say it again. Alabama primary on the Democratic side.